Electrocast.
There's a change happening in the way we live, the way we work, the way we spend our money and make our decisions. We are evolving to be more conscious in our actions in a way that serves the world and makes it a better place. Welcome to the Ethical Evolution. The Ethical Evolution podcast is brought to you by Ethical Change Agency. I'm Bindi, I'm the founder, and my mission is to help ethical entrepreneurs and holistic healers to find their voice through spiritual coaching and podcasting. I'm honoured to bring you the stories of those who create change through healing, kindness, innovation, purpose, and spirit. Understanding that to create collective change, we need to be the change. It all begins with us. Tyler Foley is an accomplished film and stage performer and has been acting in film and television since he was 6 years old after his father passed away suddenly in a motor vehicle accident. He's appeared in productions including Freddy Vs Jason, Door to Door, Carrie, and the musical Ragtime. Tyler is passionate about helping others confidently take the stage and impact an audience with their stories. He's currently the managing director of Total Buy-In and author of the #1 best-selling book, The Power to Speak Naked. With his distinct and direct style, Tyler is emerging as one of North America's sought-after leaders in the field of public speaking for personal and professional development. I absolutely loved hanging out with Tyler, and he was definitely a great sport by allowing me to take the conversation wherever I liked and to have so much fun. The more we explored in our time together, the more alike we realised we were. I hope you smile and laugh from this magical experience. Welcome, Tyler, to the Ethical Evolution.
Oh, thank you for having me, Bindi. It's a joy and a pleasure to be here.
Now, you're joining us all the way from Canada, and I am going to share with our audience that it is a stupid hour of the morning where you are, and I am so appreciative to have you here with us right now. And can I just say, the fact that it's 3 a.m., you are looking magnificent.
Thank you. I moisturize and drink lots of water.
Look at you go.
For you to notice, I appreciate it.
Now, for people who don't know who you are, I mean, gosh, I know who you are. You've been in all of my circles for I don't know how long, but for people who don't know you and have not heard of you, please go ahead and tell us.
Well, my name is Tyler Foley. Professionally, I go by Tyler Foley, and that is when I'm either on stage or acting in film and television, which is usually the first thing people need to know, that I have been a actor and performer for almost 4 decades. I started on stage at 6 years old and have been performing on stage, film, and television for the past 37 years. Do the math really quick. I will let your audience catch up.
I'm doing it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, currently, I am a father, a husband, a son, lifelong performer, seeker of warm beaches, and a lover of fine chocolates, and the author of the current #1 best-selling book, The Power to Speak Naked.
He just showed a bare naked book, guys, so we'll talk more about that in a sec. But can I just say, I've just done the math, and you and I are almost the same age, and that hydration and moisturising routine is working for you.
Thank you. I think we both look fantastic for 25.
Well, thank you very much. You need to work on your math.
I do. It's been that long since I've been in a math class.
Now, okay, like I have spoken to many celebrities around the world and are friends with many. And, that's the thing that people cling to, right? They're kind of like, oh, how can I get my claws into a celebrity? Or, someone who's in the limelight. I'm not about that. I'm about the person, the soul underneath all of that. And the same with you, Tyler. Like, there's going to be people out there who are curious. They're going to want to know, all right, where you been, what you done? Tell us.
Yes, I have a lengthy and extensive resume of playing characters whose names have numbers in them. So,
oh no, not that in the credits. No.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's great. Student number one and
Dead
various
body number
things.
2. No.
Yeah, exactly. I have played a dead body twice. That's actually one of my favorite gigs to do.
Really? Can you please tell me that process? Because I am so curious about it. Like, seriously, I watch a lot of stuff, and I really do wonder how people get that role and how it is to like just act like you're dead.
It's remarkably easy. You take a nap and then try not to breathe too deeply. The first time I got to play a dead body was for a Canadian series called Da Vinci's Inquest. And I got it around the same time that I got another role with a similar cop drama called Cold Squad. And the one I was drug flushing kid. So take note.
Right.
Another one of my very, very, very famous, well-known roles. And this one was dead male hooker.
Oh, hello.
Yeah. And yeah, it was good. And taking place in the Lower East Side of Vancouver. And so I remember the audition. You just had to like talk, tell a story to the producer. There was like really nothing to it, because what are you going to do? And they kind of took a picture and, they're like, okay, now close your eyes. So you close your eyes. They figure out what you're going to look like if your eyes aren't open. And the irony is actually in the scene, I did have to keep my eyes open. I was dead and in a tub, and the idea was that they had come in and found me 2 or 3 days after passing. And then so really the hardest part of it was sitting through full body makeup and staying in the water. So first of all, it was waterproof makeup so that I could be in the water. And they because they made me blue and kind of like added like veins, and like I was going through rigor. And then the real hard part was literally just keeping still and staying comfortable in the water, because the water, although the props department and set deck department did a really good job of initially adding warm water to said tub, after a couple of hours of filming, it was regular lukewarm. And then there was a second scene where I was in the morgue. And so that was the question they didn't ask. Tyler, are you claustrophobic? The answer is no, but it's a good thing they found that out beforehand, because then they had to like zip me into the bag.
Oh and man, no way.
Into the drawer. And they're like, okay, so in you go. And I'm like, okay, in I go. So that was creepy, but I have again made a career of squeezing myself into very small, tiny spaces. One of the first jobs that I had professionally as an adult in theater was doing the resident production of Ragtime in Vancouver, and it was 14 months. And I started out as the Houdini stunt double.
No way.
Where I was literally just part of the magic trick, and I had to like compress myself into a space inside of a box that was barely 8 inches thick. And, I got the role because I was a wee tiny lad. And then they found out that I could actually sing and dance, because I would sing along with the chorus at the beginning of the opening act of the second act. And, I ended up becoming a swing in that. And then by the end of the production, I was actually able to play Houdini, which was like, super ironic to come full circle with that, to like start as the double and then actually be the guy who's the face of the magic.
Wow.
So
my gosh. I mean, wow. There's so many things to pull apart there, but I mean, like just, oh, wow. Imagine being a Houdini double and fitting into that space. Like, there's so many metaphors for that too, right?
Oh yeah. And one of the big lessons I learned was don't eat big meals before doing your job.
I bet.
There's time after the show for food.
Yeah. Save that for later, because confined spaces are not good for that.
No. Oh, or the spandex and interesting leotard outfit thing that they had me put in. It was beautiful, actually. It was like purple and red crushed velvet. Ooh. It was actually really cool. I actually enjoyed my wardrobe. That was an amazing production to be involved with too. Like everybody involved in that show was world class, and it was just a really, really fun production to get to be involved with. Again, one of those things where I just happened to be the right place at the right time and luck out, you know,
don't know if you lucked out.
And the funny thing is like, that was again, one of those auditions where literally the first part of it, unlike the dead body, was, can you fit in the box? Because they brought, I think there was like 10 or 12 of us. They brought a whole bunch of like proper stunt performers. And I remember a buddy of mine, Rick Moore, and I got it. And then there was another woman, and I to this day, I don't remember her name. She's a French Canadian girl, and she was even smaller than I was. And the three of us were the only ones who could actually fit into the box. And she ended up going back to Quebec midway through the production. I think she wanted to, I think she was chasing a girlfriend, and
probably had PTSD from the box. No,
yeah, a little PTSD from the box. She didn't go. So originally we were like splitting the time 3 ways, and then it was just me and Rick did it. And then, like I said, at the end of the run, I ended up getting to play Houdini, and then Rick was my double, which set off a really interesting chain, because Rick ended up being like my actual stunt double on more than one occasion on a couple of different shows, where he would double me if I was acting and they needed a stunt double, which I always thought was fun, because I always got to stunt double other people. My most favorite that I got to was the late Anton Chekhov. Anton Yelchin. He played Chekhov in Star Trek before he passed away. And he did a show called Jack. And I was initially his photo double and stand-in on set. And there was a scene in the movie where he gets mad at his dad. So his dad and his mom are divorced, and he had to he ends up jumping out of the boat and swimming to shore because he just doesn't want to be around his dad. And so that scene, that you can't have at that time. I think Anton was like 14 or 15.
Wow.
And obviously he's not going to do it. So I ended up doing the stunt and like swimming to shore with it. And that was a really fun show too, because Stockard Channing played his mom. So for all the scenes, he had to have been 14. Like, he couldn't drive. And so like all the scenes where he in the show, he's learning to drive, and he couldn't legally. And so all of the scenes where he's driving around, I'm photo doubling him.
Right.
And I got to drive with Stockard Channing and just like chauffeur her around with a production trailer following behind us. It was like, that was cool. That was actually a really fun gig too.
So you must pinch yourself sometimes in those moments, right?
Yeah. No, I really do. And even now, because I'm semi-retired from the business, I started at 6 years old. So after 20 years,
and you're only like 25 now, right? So like,
I know, right? Geez. That's right. So after, at 25, I was like, well, I'm retiring, retiring from the business, which made sense. And I went back and, I pivoted and started careers. I didn't do a lot for almost a decade. And then slowly I got back into acting again, more out of a hobby now. When my agent phones and is like, hey, there's this thing, do you want to do it? I do it actually more to be with my daughter. She's been doing a lot of film and television work, and every once in a while I actually get to play her dad on film, which is like super fun. So that got me back into it. But yeah, now as being a professional speaker, I still pinch myself because I've gotten to meet some of the people that I would love to have worked with on film, but on stage, like in March of 2020, just before the world decided to shut down,
Yes.
I got to work with Arnold Schwarzenegger at an event.
Way.
And I'll be speaking with him again in a couple of months. Actually, I won't be speaking with him. He will be the headliner on stage, and I will be much earlier on in the day, but I will get to be and share a stage with the governor. So that's fun. That's cool.
Well,
and I do pinch myself. I'm like, what?
Well, Tyler, seriously, you gotta hook us up with Arnie. You know, like
Yeah, oh yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, if you can make it to Phoenix or Toronto, Bindi, I've got tickets for you. I promise.
I'll be in the States later this year, so it's 6 degrees of separation. We can make it work.
Hey, just plan that. Just plan that trip for September, and I'll have you over.
Oh, I'll be just after that. So, well, let's talk.
October for Toronto. You're good. You're good.
Yeah, okay, cool. We're done. But when you were talking about the Houdini thing. And being dead body number whatever. One thing. Okay. One thing that came to mind for me was a kind of a connection in that, what you do now in your public speaking and helping other people in public speaking and share their message is that level of fear, like being locked in a box, being in a morgue, being a dead body, having to hold your breath, having to, be something that you're not. That same fear is there when you get up in front of I don't know how many people and try to share your message. Am I right?
Yeah. And actually, the funny thing is I would say even more so because as an actor, I was able to hide behind the talent of many, many other people who were there. We were all there to make each other look good and we could rely on each other. And I was speaking somebody else's words. So if the audience didn't like it, it wasn't me. It was the guy who wrote this stuff.
Yeah.
And for me now, I've always been unabashedly and unashamed of my own voice and my own words. So I don't have a problem, but in the people that I coach now in public speaking, I see it as probably the most common theme. A lot of people think they're afraid of public speaking, and the reality is they're not. Most of us are not actually afraid of public speaking. If we were, commerce as we know it would collapse. If anybody has ever been to a restaurant and ordered food, you spoke in public. And if you didn't know your wait staff before you did it, you spoke to a complete stranger. And if the food that you requested was actually successfully brought to your table, you were able to ask for something that you wanted and have the universe provided for you. So this notion that we're afraid to speak in public, we're afraid to speak to strangers, or we're afraid to ask what we want for is completely and totally null and void if you've ever been to a restaurant. The reality is we're afraid of public judgment. And that's the bit that I have to coach people to get over. And that's where I have experienced stage fright myself, is not from the act of actually being on stage, but from the worry and fear of how I'm going to be perceived by other people while I'm on that stage and have that platform. And I've definitely battled the imposter syndrome a few times, when I'm on stage just before the governor or former governor of California, for example. You sit backstage going, they're going to know that I shouldn't. Somebody will figure it out.
I mean, when you get in that situation, okay, so, you say, okay, let's give you a scenario, which I think you're about to go into, just honestly, is you got a TED Talk happening, right? And Arnie's up there with you and you're tag teaming up there on the stage. You're about to go out. You don't know Arnie's going to be there. And fear hits you. You've just frozen and everything in your brain's completely left you. And you're like, oh, this is not going to go well. What do you do in that moment? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you bring yourself back to the present moment and go, yeah, I'm up on stage next to Arnie and I'm going to make this work?
Well, first of all, I don't know that I would ever get to be up on stage with him, but if I did, wow, that would be cool. But you'd actually, something that you'd said had alluded to the way to deal with it, and that is to be in the moment. Because a lot of times the fear is coming from either focusing on a past event or projecting into a future event. Even if it's moments into the future, you're still not present. And the real key, the real secret to calming those nerves or just better yet, right? Prevention is better than a cure. Not getting to that point to begin with is focusing on your audience. It's really hard to be worried because stage fright and that fear is coming from an internal driving mechanism that is usually very egocentric and driven from an internal worry about perception. And if you focus on your audience, it's really hard to then be focused on you and, what if scenarios where, well, what if they figure out that I shouldn't be up here? What if I bomb? What if I forget all of this stuff? What if I'm not funny? What if they don't think I'm funny, even though I think I'm funny? What if I don't deliver? Like all of that stuff is very egocentric, where if you concentrate on your audience, what do they need? How do you provide value to them? What do they need in this moment? And that can be as simple as literally asking them, who here needs this information? And then you know who you're speaking to. That is usually, that first step forward into calming those nerves. The other thing is I would never take the stage and haven't in decades, literally decades, without preparing myself mentally first to be on stage. So if I am going to have a moment of panic, it's going to be before I ever step onto a platform where people are looking at me. And once I take the stage, there's no turning back, but I'm already mentally prepared to be in that space so that I'm not having that moment of panic while I'm on there. And I can honestly say that in the 4 decades that I've been doing this, I've only experienced stage fright on stage twice. And I clearly and distinctly remember them. And the last time I was 17 and the first time I was 14. And both of those came as a direct result of a lack of preparation. And I learned very rapidly that I would never put myself into that position again. First time was by accident. The second time was by absolute laziness. And I vowed never to have it happen again. So far, it hasn't.
And, a lot of people would know from listening to this show that I also have a daytime job in the corporate world in addition to doing this. And one thing that I see a lot in a lot of people is that they struggle with the judgment that other people have of them, particularly when they need help or they're struggling. And trying to help someone understand that, you know what, it's okay. You need help, reach out. You need to, make other people understand how you're struggling. Do it. You're not going to be judged. That's something that, really actually resonated for me today in my work. And I was like, you know what, if you need help, just reach out. You're not going to be judged. You're going to be supported. That's just the human default for me. How do you help people get through that? A lot of people, we look at social media, we look at the media, all kinds of stuff. It is judgment. It is ego. How do people get beyond that?
Well, I think the first thing is stop looking at social media.
Yeah, right.
Although to be honest, like, because I am a very odd and backwards individual. I remember the first time I got trolled for content that I posted, being so happy about it because it meant that I had finally, after years on social media, said something that mattered.
you cut through.
Where, yeah, and it wasn't a repeat of anything, like it certainly wasn't political. It was, the posting of my content, and one of the things was, pointing out the statistic of 77% of people claiming to have a fear of public speaking. And I got this guy just kept coming at me, telling me how I was wrong, and that's, that statistic is skewed, and it's old, and it's outdated, and the methods that they were using to get it, and the polls that they were using, the questions were leading, and like, he just went off. And I'm like, you obviously aren't aware of my content. But I am glad that I had the reach for you to notice this, that you are educated enough to know what I know. You need to dig a little bit further before you start attacking this, and then go from that. And then I got another one to former guest on your show, and my current business partner, Michael Harris, and I run a podcast challenge where we encourage people and show them how they can be on 100 podcasts in 100 days. And there was a guy who went off about how it was mathematically impossible to do it. And he's like, just assuming you can even get on 2 shows a month, at maximum is 24 in a year. And I went, using that math, I would agree with you completely. But I have been on over 300 in just under a year. And I assure you, if you do 2 a day for 5 days a week, that's 10 shows a week, which is entirely possible to do. It's very easy. That's only 2 hours a day of your time maximum. And you do that for 10 weeks. That's 2.5 months. And that's under 100 days. And you can entirely, completely get on 100 podcasts doing that. Now, it takes a little bit of planning up front. It's not like you just get on them, but you can definitely be booking that in that process. And it is a very easy thing to do. And we have an entire thing to teach you how to do it. So if you think it's impossible, come join the challenge. It's free. And, and so, to receive that kind of negative backlash was, again, for me, entertaining, because it meant that I was saying something that was relevant enough that people felt the need to clap back and say that I couldn't. And that was interesting. But to the initial question of how do we get over that fear of judgment from other people, is to realize that the people who are judging you negatively aren't your audience.
Amen.
Right? They're not the people who they're not the people who you're trying to impress. You are never going to impress 100% of the people 100% of the time. And if you try to, you're going to be exhausted and truly experience failure. Like, that's true failure, because it's just not going to happen. The reality is, the people who are listening to you are on your side. Like, if you have an audience that's there, those are your people.
Yeah.
Like, they're there.
Yeah.
Because we as human beings are remarkably self-centered and selfish. And so we don't do anything that doesn't serve ourselves. So if I'm going to show up at some place, even if it's like a workplace environment where I have been voluntold to give, a presentation on last quarter's sales statistics, and everybody else is required to be at this meeting because the boss told us so, and we listen to what the boss has to say, those people are still on your side because they don't want their time wasted, right? Or they wouldn't show up. Especially right now, we would come up with an excuse not to be in that meeting. Even if it's a mandatory meeting, we come down with something. It's probably best if I don't attend this thing. So I'm just going to duck out, right? We just wouldn't show up. And so the audience is on your side. And if you've been asked to give the presentation, we don't ask second best to do the thing. We ask the best person, the most qualified person at that time to do it. So if you have been asked to give this presentation, even if you've been voluntold, it's because nobody else could do it better than you. So that makes you the expert or the authority in that subject matter at that time period. And so knowing that you're the expert and knowing that the audience is on your side is 90% of the battle. The other 10% is that stop comparing yourself, right? Don't go on the social media. Don't look at the haters. Right? It's very easy for me to be like, well, I'm not Tony Robbins, because I'm not, and I never will be. Tony and I are completely, totally different human beings in all aspects of the word. I mean, the man is literally a giant. And I stand at a whopping 5'7" at the best of times, so I am just a large personality. He's Tony Robbins. And if I was to constantly compare myself to Tony, I would fail. And it's same with people who compare themselves to me. And it's a mistake that a lot of my clients make initially. They're like, well, you're doing this and I want to do that. I'm like, it's great to want to do this, but you're never going to do it the way that I do it. I do it my way. You do it your way. And these stages that I've had will never be duplicated. I never do the same performance. I never do the same thing. And again, it's a lesson that I learned very early on being in theater at 6 years old, was that once the curtain comes down on that show will never be performed again. And tomorrow's run is a totally different one. And so you have to enjoy being in that moment and being comfortable with who you are at that time. And so the best way to get over that fear of judgment is to stop comparing yourselves to other people. And again, it becomes that focus on your audience. What can I do for my audience? How can I show up in my best, most powerful way right now to serve them? And remember that they only need one takeaway. You don't have to give them the whole world. If they just take one thing away, you've provided value to them. So what is that one thing? And if you need to expand on it, if you deliver more than that, great. What is the one thing that you need to give them? What is the one thing they need to walk away with? And if you can do that, they're on your side. You are the expert. You are the authority. And that's all you've done. So focus on your audience. Take the focus off of you. And for the love of all things, please don't compare yourself to anybody else, because that's the route to the dark side.
Oh, I could not agree with you more. And, like Tyler, in the spiritual coaching that I do, I have a lot of clients who are trying to find their message amongst, all the noise out there and find their voice. But one of the things that I've learnt in all my years in radio and also in podcasting is that there's also a level of intuition there, like where you got to listen to your gut. Listen to yourself. And I know, particularly for me, people who listen to this show, they will see a difference in the last year or so in the episodes, in that I truly rely upon my intuition and my gut to know whether a guest will work. And if they don't get published. Simple as that. And some of those people are probably listening now. I'm sorry. But if it don't feel right, I'm not letting it out there to the universe, because, it's the right thing for you and me. If we're not
and your
connecting.
audience, like that,
Exactly.
That's you being of service to everybody who's involved. If it didn't work, there's no point in putting that out there. And that's, that's the joy of doing something that's pre-recorded. It's a little bit harder when it's live.
Yeah, right.
Well, can't reel this one back in. Let's just save this as it is. But, I think that's an important thing to recognize too, that not everybody is a fit. Not everybody's a fit. And you don't, that's the other thing, is it's okay. It's okay.
It's completely
that not everybody
okay.
is a fit.
Yeah. And this is the thing that I really want to raise right now, Tyler, is that right here, right now, you're in Canada, I'm in Brisbane, Australia, and the connection you and I have right now, energetically and emotionally, is like we're in the same room. That's why I know this is working.
Yes.
And you're looking me right in the eyes with your gorgeous eyes, can I just say? And I'm just like,
you can, thank you.
We are, it's like we're in the exact same room, and we are on the exact same page. So I know this is just I don't even need to think about it. It just is.
Yeah, really the only problem is that you're in the right spot and I'm in the wrong spot. man, do I ever. If I'm looking forward to when I can get back down to the Southern Hemisphere and play around on the Gold Coast again.
Oh, yes. Well, that's not far away from me. So when you come back down, let's catch up because, it is good times down here. I mean, it's a bit cold right now, not anywhere near how it would be in Canada, can I just say, but it's been a little bit cold today.
It dropped down to 10, maybe even 12 degrees. Do you know what? That's horrible.
Did you just attempt an Australian accent?
No, God, no.
Go on, do it.
I know way better.
Do it.
Here's the accent that I can. I can do a really good French accent, although it's.
Well, you're in Canada.
Horrible. Yeah, but that's the thing. It's a horrible hybrid of a Quebecois accent and a proper Parisian accent. And I do actually know the difference between the two because I grew up in Canada making fun of the Quebecois. My apologies to my French neighbors. And I do pretty decent Russian accent. 3 different versions of Scottish, and all of them are bang on, I'm told. Miserable Irish. Cannot do an Irish. My Irish sounds like a really bad cartoon version. And if I try to do an Australian accent, it becomes my Irish accent, which becomes a really bad. Yeah, no. And the worst is I have so many Australian friends, and I lived down there for time, and I just know that I can't do it well, and I don't often try. If my wife wants to be entertained one day, she'll be like, "Try it," and I'm like, "No."
I do challenge a couple people to it, and I have friends in the States, and when they do try it, it sounds very Cockney, like it's just so wrong.
Oh yeah, because you want to do this one, right? Ooh. But and then it comes right. Then it comes across a little Cockney.
Yeah.
But this is about as good as I can get it,
Oof.
And it's not even.
That is very English. That is very English, bro.
Oh, it's so English. Yeah. But then you want to get a proper Cockney and it governor. Now I can actually take it, and I can take it where it needs to be. But it's not good. It's not good. But the Scottish,
yeah, right.
That laddie, that's bang on.
Oof, that is bang on. That really is. A lot of people say to me that I sound English and a little bit Kiwi at the same time, but I just have a clear accent, I think.
You're like, no, I just enunciate. I'm still Australian.
I just finish the words, or I try to. But I love fooling with accents. It's good fun, if I spend time around someone who has an accent that is not the same as mine, look out, I sound like them within 15 minutes. That's pretty much how I work.
Yeah, I definitely need a little bit more immersion time than that. I have had to copy. Do you know what's the worst part is, Bindi? I had the opportunity to audition for Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
No way.
And for the musical version of it.
Way.
But they want you to have a good Australian accent, and I literally have to work up weeks of listening to, the Helmsworth brothers in various films just to be able to like get it up and listen to some Russell Crowe too, and just like just to try and mimic and pattern it. And I just couldn't pull it off in time. It just crushed me. It crushed me because I could do the song, I could do the choreography, but I just couldn't nail the accent in time.
And that's so funny, because I also do narration part-time as another side gig, and I'm actually narrating a book at the moment, which is an Australian novel. And, so I have to do all these different Australian characters, which is easy for me because, that's what I am. But, like I said, I spend so much time with people from the US that my accent has changed. I really pronounce my R's a lot more. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like me anymore. But also I find really funny, particularly with Canadians, how they pronounce their vowels. Do you pick that one up, like a boot?
Oh, I do. So yes, a oot and a boot is actually a thing. So you tell a Canadian that we say that, and they will all be, "Oh, we don't sound. That's ridiculous. Get out of here!" And you're like, you just literally did it.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for me because most of what I audition for is American film and television. And so we have to get it out of our vocabulary. And I have to be very, very conscious of how I pronounce rough, which is a roof, apparently, and out, which I would want to say oot. What's a couple of the other ones? First of all, Americans never apologize, so I don't often have to say that I'm sorry, but I need to say that I'm sorry, like it's an East Indian woman's dress, versus sorry, which is how I want to say it. Like, I've bruised myself and added an IE to the end of it because now I'm trying to be Australian and I've got my sunnies and I'm sorry.
Oh, you came very close there. It was very close. Well done.
Hey.
Well done.
Well, so here's the thing. I know all the slang. I just don't say it the right way.
I've had so many people ask me about different kind of Australian slang from all around the world, and you're like, okay, all right, I'll break it down for you. Like, I know there was one episode, I was actually on another podcast, and they were like, oh, so what does the Savo mean? And I was like, and what means this afternoon, And like Australians just like, we cut everything down. We make things simple, basic, bogan, stupid.
Why would you say a bathing can say swimmers? Like,
well, we don't even say that.
Makes sense.
And and again, that's the other weird thing, like within Australia, there's as there would be there's different kind of slang within the different states. Like up here we say togs, we don't say swimmers or bathers. It's, very, very English.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, trust me. I know. But that's one of the things that I love the most about just the world in general and my job, that I get the privilege to study these things and see regional difference, but also to experience it. Like it's so much fun that I have traveled as much as I have, and to be able to expose my wife to that now, and now even more my daughter, getting to show her literally the world, that is much more than beyond our front door. And for me to have had the real joy of experiencing that at a young age and seeing, that this is a very, very, very diverse culture, and my extremely small pocket of the world is not the world. It just happens to be my space within this earth of ours, has been really fundamental in my development and my growth. And I think it's one of the things that really drives me forward with what I do, is that constant want to show my daughter, hey, look at this fun thing. And to be able to do what I do and to be able to bring my family along with me on occasion is amazing. Even the fact that my daughter's had a passport for as long as she has.
Yeah.
I think she's had her passport since she was 2 years old.
Wow.
And and not that we get to use it very often, because for half of her life, she hasn't been allowed to travel, but when we could, we did. And I've gotten to do some really cool things too. Like, my daughter was obsessed with space and astronauts. When she was 1 year old, I grew up in a very small rural community, and my family still farms. We have an acreage just east of the town that I grew up in. And one night, my daughter was barely 1 year old, and my mother's husband, her gramps, took her out, and they were lying on the grass. Beautiful night, clear skies, and you can see millions of stars because there's absolutely no light pollution where we're at. And he pointed up to her. He said, "You see that star that's moving in the sky?" And Kenzie said, "Yes." He said, "That's the International Space Station. There's astronauts on it, and they're moving right now." And she was fascinated by the fact that there were people in space. And so then they looked it up, because it's the internet, and every 1.5-year-old has access to some form of electronic device, and they understand how to use it better than their parents. So her and Gramps looked up the International Space Station, and then she started to learn about Chris Hadfield, who was Canadian and one of the longest tenures of astronauts that have been on the International Space Station. And she got to, see videos of him and how he's floating and all that. Anyway, she was obsessed with space. And then I got invited to a speaking tour around Houston. And I actually got to speak at Mission Control. And so I have pictures of me at Mission Control on stage with the big NASA logo and, an actual for real space suit. I got to meet and speak with the gentleman who fits every astronaut into the spacesuit so that they can actually function there, because they're all literally custom tailored, which makes sense. You wouldn't think about it until you think about it. And you're like, oh, well, of course. Yeah. You don't have a one size fits all human being. So you definitely don't have a one size fits all spacesuit to encapsulate said human being while they walk around in the dangers of space. That vacuum will suck you out. And so I got to do these things, and and then now I'm daddy's been to NASA, so that was really cool, and I just love this career because I get to do stuff like that.
Like just listening to you tell that story, you took my breath away in that minute there where you got to go to Mission Control and do that, because I also was one of those kids that loved space. Believe it or not. And I can remember, may have been about grade 6 or 7 back in the day. Yes, it was a long time ago. When Halley's Comet came through, and we could see it here in Australia. And I can remember standing on the veranda. We call them a veranda. It's like a balcony. Of my parents' house. They're still in that house. In a little country town about 45 minutes from where I am right now. And I can remember getting up in the middle of the night. We set the alarm, and I had the little, the little measurement thing, and we got out there, and we all as a family watched Halley's Comet go through the sky. And I still remember it all these years later, of how incredible that was to watch that moment in time. And I was so fascinated by space, and I still am, like just the constellations and the stars and where they are and the times of the year and the different hemispheres. And I know when I go to the northern hemisphere later this year, it's going to be a completely different thing, and that fascinates me too. But it's just, I was one of those kids too, and I still kind of am, if I could go to the planetarium every day, I'd be happy, It's just one of those things. And to be at wonder, regardless of the age that you are, and still love that, I think that is living.
Oh, and it's one of the greatest gifts that my daughter has brought to me is being able to re-experience the world through her eyes and have that sense of wonderment again. And, and the why, the things that she's fascinated by, and the things that she's not afraid of and the things that she is afraid of. And it's all fascinating to me. It's really cool. And it's funny that Halley's Comet is one of your memories. That's one of my most distinct memories of my father before he passed away, was doing that same thing, leaving our front porch step, getting away from the light pollution. We had a sextant to track where we were supposed to be looking. And then he had a telescope, and I had a set of binoculars, and we'd switch back and forth between the two. He'd get Halley's Comet in, really, really clearly into the telescope, and then we'd look at it decently magnified with the binoculars, but really, really close up. You'd continue to track it with the telescope, and being up. I'm sure it wasn't the middle of the night the way that I think it is in my head, because at the time I think I would have been 4 or 5 years old. But to be able to have experienced that with him, that was a shared thing that me and him got to do. And I try to do that with Kenzie too. Like I have woken her up. So am I okay being up at 3 o'clock in the morning, Bindi? Because it's not the first time
where magic happens.
In the middle of the night to do. Yeah. It's not the first time I've had to wake up to do something that's really, really cool and really, really fun. And, I'll wake her up if there's like a meteor storm, or I've woken her up for lunar eclipses so that she could see the lunar eclipses. And we have a great observatory just west of town. One of the, again, privileges I have of growing up where I grew up. And Australia is not unlike this either. We have literally minutes from our front door an area in the foothills called Dark Sky Country. And it's literally dotted with hundreds of amateur and professional observatories. And the Rosted Observatory, which is run by the University of Calgary and funded both provincially and nationally, I believe, is 20 minutes down the road from me. And where my daughter goes to school, they actually have a professional observatory on campus at the school. So like for all those reasons, I, as you can tell, very much obsessed with the stars. I actually applied twice to be a junior astronaut and go down for space camp. I didn't get selected, but it just crushed me. And then my pursuits changed, and I did get accepted to a performing arts summer camp. So guess which one I ended up going to? Where did my life lead? Not to space, but to stage, which is a dark space on itself.
And it just shows, I've got some very close, what I call soulmates or soul sisters in the US, and one of the gifts I give them for very important occasions is I buy them a star. I buy them their own star, or I buy them something that relates to the moon or the stars or something like that. And there's nothing greater than that. I just think it's so cool, and I know most people will not have seen your reaction when I mentioned Halley's Comet, but you just lit up. Like you just set on fire. And that just made my day, can I just say?
Well, hopefully they can hear my excitement, because they may not be able to see the joy that talking about Halley's Comet brought to you and me both, but hopefully it translated through the audio. You can hear just the pure joy that I have talking about the stars.
Now, Tyler, this conversation has not gone anywhere near where I thought it would go, but
no.
But
it went exactly where it needed to.
Exactly. It's been absolutely incredible. And I know that you're one of those people that I could just sit and talk to all day. But like your book, give us a quick breakdown of what that's about.
The very, very, very quick breakdown of it is a book not for professional public speakers, but for the people who look at professional public speakers and go, I don't even get why you would do that. And the idea is to give people a very simple, easy to follow blueprint on essentially finding their own confidence, finding their own voice, and finding their own story, because I strongly believe that everybody has a story to tell. In fact, it's one of the first things that I do in any of the workshops that I conduct is it takes literally 2 minutes to discover what your stories are. I know we only have 4 minutes left, you and I, and we can take 2 of it and just have the people at home follow along. All they need to do is take their age, round it up to the nearest 5. So for me, 43, I'm going to round up to 45. Then you take that number, you divide by 5, and that will give you a set even number of time periods. So for me, I'm going to take my 45, I'm going to divide by 5. That's going to give me equal time periods of 9. So we should have 5 equal time periods. Now, if you're a stickler and you're like, yeah, but I've rounded up and I didn't experience those 2 years. Okay, well, then some quick math. You either rounded up by 1 or 2, because that's how this math works. Couldn't have been more, or you would have had to round down. So
I don't like this rounding up. I don't like this rounding up.
Yeah, exactly.
At
Don't
my age,
do
please.
the round up.
No.
Yeah. So you rounded up by 1 or 2. So just deduct that from your last time period. And so for me, it would be a time period of 7 years. Or if you had to round down, then you take that either 1 or 2 and you tack that onto your first time period. So if you round it up, you subtract it from your last time period. If you rounded down, you add to your first time period. And then for those super sticklers, you can do it that way. Or you can just stick with the easy math, because easy math is easy. And you just go with, the 5 even time periods. Here's where the fun comes in. I want you to think back to that first time period, whatever it is. For me, 0 to 9. For your listeners, it's whatever number you came up with. That first time period, what is the first memory that springs to mind when you think of you at that time? Whatever that memory is, don't overthink of it. Like literally you've got 10 seconds tops. What's the first memory? It could be a color, it could be a smell, it could be a sound, it could be a very vivid image, or it could be kind of like an ethereal shadow thing, but something comes to mind when you think of that time period. Write it down and then do that again for the next 4 time periods. And you should have 5 memories. And it's the ones that spring to mind instantly. Your stories are encapsulated in the exploration, and this takes longer than the 2 minutes that we had. Your stories are the exploration of why those memories are so significant to you. And as you explore that, you will find out why it's significant to you, and your retelling of it will be why it's significant to your audience by asking, what did I need to learn in each one of these things? What are the lessons that I learned from each one of these memories? And therefore, what lesson can I impart to my audience? And those are the stories that you can tell. So the Power to Speak Naked is designed to show people that they do have a story within them, that they can tell that story. And most of the book is dedicated to finding that inner strength, that inner power to be truly vulnerable and speak the raw, naked truth and feel comfortable doing it.
Wow, that's incredible. And, one of the things that came through when I spoke to Michael was, one of the lessons that came through my very first podcast that I did was, I was telling my story of, when I was 19 and I fractured my ankle. And, I was like, why am I telling everyone all the things that have gone wrong with me? Like, who am I to think I'm, any better than anyone else? Like, what am I learning from this? And I sat in that for a minute and I went, and I listened. And what came back was, it's all about learning from the fall. And it's the strength in getting back up again. I always joked that it was like a Chumbawamba song. I get down, I get back up again. It's like, a trampoline. But that was what my lesson was, like no matter how many times you fall down, it's about getting back up. It's the strength in getting back up. And
here I thought the lesson was to drink a whiskey drink, then drink a vodka drink, and then drink a cider drink.
That wasn't the reason why I fell down, though.
Oh, okay. Well, then you're right.
If it was, that was different.
Is how you get back up again.
Yes. But that was the joke in it, right? So, and that is, it's kind of a theme that comes through this, and that's what you're picking up there is, I just love how you've demonstrated that and picking up those moments in time that do resonate with you and why. What's the lesson you need to learn from it? I mean, so many of us attach blame, guilt, shame to so many things in our lives when that's not the lesson. It's not the lesson at all.
No, and you never know who needs to hear your story until you tell it.
Exactly.
Right? And you have no idea the impact that story can have until you tell it. And I've seen that lesson play out time and time and time and time and time again, where it's a horrible example. It's not the best one to tell, but it's the one that we can tell in the time that we have. It's that time where you were in, high school and you were writing an exam and everybody's staring at question 7 and going, I don't get it. And finally one person raises their hand and they go, excuse me, teacher. It's question 7. I don't get it. I don't understand. And it doesn't make sense. And I think I understand the answer, but I can't find the right answer. And what am I missing? And the teacher looks at it and goes, oh, I made a mistake. Sorry. It should be this thing. And then everybody else in the class goes, oh yeah. I was thinking the same thing. I was saying, and everybody has this sigh of relief, right? Everyone was struggling with the thing, but no one was brave enough to say it because they thought they were the only one. And then that one person who was brave enough to come up and be like, I think there's something wrong here. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, everybody goes, yes. And the people who hadn't gotten to that question yet were like, oh, I'm glad they spoke up. I just dodged a bullet. And there were some people who were like, there was a mistake in that. Oh, freebie, right? Everybody learned from that, but it took that one brave person to speak up. And I've seen that play out in literally life-saving scenarios. And I've seen it as trivial as just speaking up in an exam, but you never know who needs to hear what your story is until you say it, and who resonates with it is truly who needs to be in your sphere.
And that's it. It's having the courage to speak up and ask the question that you need without judgment, what we were going back to before. Now, we've talked about speaking naked here, Tyler.
Highly recommended, by the way.
That is something that incites a fear in me you would not imagine. But I like to think of myself a very confident person. That's not a thing I want to touch right now. But if people want to find out more about you and get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Well, the best thing they can do is hit pause on this, Bindi, because 9 times out of 10, you've put in that information in the show notes. But before they go to check that out, what I would ask them to do, since they're already on a device, they're already listening to you. If they're listening to the Ethical Evolution on a regular basis, or if they're somehow involved with the Ethical Change Agency and they're getting value out of what you provide, I would ask them, since they're already on the device, they're already listening to this wonderful conversation you and I have had over the last hour, why not give you a 5-star review? Because they're already there.
I love you.
They're already listening. And if they're willing to do that as a favor to me, as a thank you for the time that you and I have shared together here, if they're willing to give you a 5-star review and actually say, why they're doing it, like what about the Ethical Evolution keeps bringing them back listening, maybe what was one of their favorite guests? Was it Michael? He's fantastic. Why are they coming and listening so that you
just
can provide
Tyler
better value?
Foley.
Just put in my name. That's okay. But let them know, or have them tell you what they're getting out of this podcast so that you can serve them better. And if they're willing to do that favor for me, then they can come to SeanTylerFoley.com, and Sean is spelled the proper Irish way, SeanTylerFoley. And if they come to my website, they can find all things about me. They can learn about the book. They can figure out where I'm speaking next. They can, if they come and as a thank you for leaving you the 5-star review, if they click right on the front page, right above the landing, there's an invitation to join me and Michael in our Endless Stages Facebook group. If they come through the website, as opposed to going through Mark Zuckerberg's site and finding it that way, because they won't get all the freebies, but if they come through my website to do it, I will give them a free PDF download of my book, The Power to Speak Naked. They will also get access to my video training series called Drop the Mic. And they're going to get included in our Facebook group, Endless Stages, where Michael and I go live every Tuesday at noon Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern. You will have to convert it for Australian time. It's probably an ungodly hour.
It's actually
for
not.
you,
it's actually not. It's actually.
Oh no, you're right. It's not too bad.
No,
it's like 7 in the evening.
Mid-morning over here, about that time.
Yeah. So, it's convenient. It's convenient for my friends in the Southern Hemisphere to come and join me and Michael. And we go live every Tuesday for 20 minutes and train on whatever the topic of the week is. And we usually pull that topic from whatever is being discussed within the group, whatever the key issue that people are struggling with. And we try to shed some light on to some of those things. So the last couple of trainings we did were the abundance of places to speak, how to find those speaking engagements. We've talked about how to get over stage fright. We've done a lot in the recent months on how to get on podcasts, how to find your message, how to find your audience, how to discover your stories, how to expand your stories and contract your stories so that you can tell them in 5 seconds, 5 minutes, and an hour. And all of those things we love to do, and we do it for free. So if anybody wants some free stuff, come on over to SeanTylerFoley.com, but only if you're willing to give Bindi a 5-star review. No 5-star review, no book for you.
You know what, Tyler? I'm going to make you a deal. How about I come and join you and Michael in the Facebook group, and I help those people who want to be guests on podcasts to actually be better guests?
Yeah, by all means.
I'll come help you.
Yeah, sounds good. It would be my joy and my pleasure to have special guest Bindi on for a good go.
I will come and join you. And, as we've said previously, I've had both you and Michael on the podcast, and it like just absolute magical time with both of you. So I had the last big question for you, Tyler. I know we're running out of time. What's the change you'd like to see in the world, and how can we bring it to life?
I'm doing my part already. It saddens me that because of my daughter's gender, that her voice is still not perceived as strong as mine is. And that crushes my soul. Even when I dedicated my book, and then because my book is dedicated to my daughter, she thinks it's her book, which I think is so cute. But I dedicated my book to say to my daughter, may you always have the courage to speak up for what you believe in and the confidence that your voice will be heard. And it is my mission to ensure that it doesn't matter the color of her skin. It doesn't matter her gender. It doesn't matter her nationality, that she has a voice and that her voice matters. And that goes for every other person on this planet. I don't see why any one other person's experience should be diminished just because of who they are, what they do, who they love, or where they grew up. And I'm making it my mission, one person at a time, to strengthen their resolve within their own spirit, to know that they do have a story, that they do have something to contribute to the world, and that not only does their story matter, but if they speak it, it will be heard by the people who need to hear it. And if I can do that over and over and over again, I will have created the change that I want to see in the world.
Oh, yes. And there has been so much just this week, as we all know, particularly in the States, around that, and particularly the sovereignty of women, which I just can't even fathom here in Australia. Absolutely incredible that kind of law is happening in 2022.
Mind-boggling.
We're going backwards. We're not going forwards. We are going backwards, and this shit needs to stop. Seriously. Tyler, this has been an incredible moment in time with you. Thank you so much for making the time for this. I cannot thank you enough. I truly appreciate you. Thank you so much for being a part of the Ethical Evolution.
Oh, thank you for the privilege of being on.
Thanks for listening to the Ethical Evolution podcast. If you're ready to be the change and would love to work with me on finding your voice through spiritual coaching or creating your own podcast with impact, visit ethicalchangeagency.com.
Welcome to the Reverie channel, where entertainment knows no bounds. Live concerts, on-demand music, documentaries, and short films, all in stunning HD. Now on Roku TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Immerse yourself from home. And on Android and iOS for those on the move. Support creators with crowdfunding donations. Fuel their creativity. Join us in shaping entertainment's future. The Reverie channel, where every view, every donation matters.
If you're a working professional wondering what's next for your career, you've come to the right place. Whether you're looking for a promotion, growth, or a potential career transition, look no further. With over 30 years working in a variety of industries, I share my insider knowledge with those ready to get ahead on Career Advancement with Craig Ansell. Tune in to get your strategies for success.